Hello and welcome back to Soul Search Sunday with Johnny Tiger. This is Sunday, July 18th, 2021. As the pandemic, at least here in Canada, is slowly, oh so very slowly, drawing to an end of some sort. I mean, no doubt we're going to see some resurgence of the virus and its variations, but for now, at the very least, things are slowly going back to normalcy. Restrictions are lifting. People are going out, having fun, and things are happening. Things are being restored. Things are being rejuvenated. Slowly, we are going back to the old ways more and more. As though this is going on, I have been thinking a lot about this past year and a half. We often hear people say that with every cloud there's some silver linings, and with every sunshine, some raindrops shall fall, or other uh, old wise sayings and proverbs to the same effect. And in my own culture, there is a very old, very simple tale that illustrates uh, just how true that is. Now, usually I tell stories on Wisdom Wednesday, but I'm going to tell the story today. Because, like I said, it's a very short story, very simple, but it's so relevant to what I am talking about today. The story goes that once upon a time, there was an old man who was very rich. He had a son that he loved very much, and he had a lot of money. He was doing very good. He was healthy, his family loved him, and he loved his family. One day, one of his best friends came to visit him and brought him a gorgeous stallion, a very powerful horse, and said, "Hey, my friend, I want to give this horse to you." So this old man thanked his friend and he received the horse. And many other neighbors and friends started to congratulate him and say, "Wow, you're so lucky. You're such a lucky guy. You have such a beautiful horse. It's one of the best horse in China. Wow, that's great. You are so fortunate. You have everything." The man smiled and told his friend, "We don't know if this is lucky or not. Maybe it is, and maybe it is not." Well, because he was really old and just not quite as spry as he used to be, so the taking care of this powerful horse was mostly done by his son, who was a great rider, great uh, sportsman, and great warrior. One day, while out galloping on this powerful horse, the son fell off the horse and broke both legs. Everyone was devastated, and people came to visit, and they would say to the old man, "Oh, we are so sorry for your misfortune. Your son was such a great sportsman. He was such a great athlete. We are so sorry. This is such a misfortune for such a good guy like you." The man smiled and he said, "Well, we don't know if this is a great misfortune. Maybe it is, maybe it's not." A few months later, the kingdom suddenly went to war, against the neighboring kingdom, and every family that had uh, someone young enough to wield a sword, strong enough to sit a horse, was drafted to go fight and die in the war. And because his son broke both legs, he was not required to serve in the army. And this was when the old man said to his family, "See, first we got this great horse, and everyone thought it was a good thing, but it broke our boy's legs. And then when his legs got broken, everyone thought it was such a bad thing, but that saved his life." So the lesson we should learn from that is that nothing in life is as it seems. There can be a blessing in every misfortune, and there can be a curse with every fortune. When I was growing up, uh, a lot of people, especially in Taiwan, where people didn't really know about disability, how to deal with people with disability, a lot of people pitied me. A lot of people felt sorry for me. A lot of people said, "Wow, so bad that you can't see. You will never be able to do anything. You will never be able to cook for yourself. You'll never be able to walk out there and see the beautiful world for yourself. How sad." In fact, in the upcoming Johnny Tiger documentary, you guys will see that even my family members to this day, my sister, my father, uh, a lot of my family members still carry this guilt and pity in their heart uh, when they think about me unable to see. But there was one person who didn't feel sorry for me, who actually thought that maybe being blind was a good thing. My nanny Maru, who brought me up and took care of me, basically was a mother that wasn't a mother who wasn't related to me by blood, but more of a mother than my own biological mother. Maru always said, "I'm glad you went blind, because if you weren't blind, living, growing in the kind of family that you were growing up in, with your personality, with your tendency toward extremes and violence, and your tendency to be able to be smooth and diplomatic and yet very ruthless at the same time, you would be a criminal. You would grow up and you would either end up in jail or you would end up dying early." And as I grew up, honestly, in the beginning, I thought she was full of it. I thought she was BS. I thought, you can't say that. Like, who are you to say that I would grow up to be a criminal? Who are you to say that? Like, you can't say that. You can't know that. But as I grew up and I got into sociology in college and looking at my own family situation, looking at my own siblings, looking at my father's own siblings, looking at my grandfather's generation, and learning about how people will get shaped, brainwashed by their surrounding, the whole nurture versus nature situation, I realized that most of what is good in my personality, most of the morality, most of the honor that I absorbed came from my nanny Maru, because she was there to guide me. She was there as my moral compass. So if I was not blind, then my family would not have hired her. And that would mean there would be a huge chunk of morality and good that would be missing from my character, and all that would be left would be the violent part, the part of me that love to fight, the part of me that love a good challenge, the part of me that is uh, very opposing to authority, and all that stuff. And just going by what happened to my grandfather and what happened to my father and my father's siblings and stuff like that, and my own brother and sister, I believe she was right. I believe that if I was not blind, if I didn't go blind at the age of 3, today I wouldn't be standing here doing a Soul Search Sunday trying to make the world a better place. I probably would be out there trying to prove how badass I am. Well, okay, I mean, that there are days that I'm out there trying to prove how badass I am, but not in the way that I would have otherwise. I think going blind probably was a blessing. When my parents and family members first realized I was going blind, they acted very devastated. Everyone was sad and depressed and blaming each other. But a wise, very wise woman back then, my grandmother, my father's mom, also made a prediction. She said to my dad, she said, "Don't be so sad. This blind child will be the only one of your children that reach any kind of success." Now, I don't know what was her idea of success. I mean, if her idea of success is like my dad's idea of success, where I have to make a lot of money and live in a big house, then I think she probably misspoken there. But if we look at success in a more generalized term, of me and my siblings, I am the only person who has finished college uh, and university. I'm the only one who's able to maintain a very balanced financial status. I'm the only person who is actively uh, out there trying to improve the world around me. Um, and I'm the only one, this is the most important one. Out of all my siblings, I'm the only person who is genuinely happy with my life. So maybe if we look at it that way, then my grandmother was right. Now go back to the pandemic, because I do want to talk about the pandemic as a main uh, cloud and silver lining. Now, when I say that I have seen some silver linings, I've seen some blessing that came out of this pandemic, I am in no way trying to belittle any of the sacrifices and death and miseries that were caused by the pandemic. A lot of people died. A lot of people were sick. A lot of people suffered. I suffered. A lot of relationship suffered. Okay, so I'm by no means saying that these things were not consequential. However, I think when we are dealing with a situation that is unavoidable, such as this pandemic, I know. Some people say, well, if we did this in the beginning, it could have been avoided. If we did this, it could have been avoided. You're welcome to believe that. But I will say that if could have never fixed anything. If we would have, if we could have, it's all guesswork. You're looking back now, you're guessing it would have done some good. But we don't know that. One example is a lot of people said if the government shut us down earlier, if they let us know earlier and shut us down, then things wouldn't be this bad. Okay, that's valid. That because that is true. If they shut us down earlier, But could they shut us down earlier? I mean, come on. We are a year and a half into the pandemic. There are still people who refuse to wear a mask. There's still people who believe the virus is not that bad. There's still people who will not get vaccinated. There's still people who believe that this is all a conspiracy. 1.5 years later. So can we really believe that if, let's say, back in January of 2020 or December of 2019, when no one even heard of this virus, let's say our government decide, okay, everyone, we got to shut down the economy, we got to shut down the country for the next 2 months because there's this really scary virus going on in China. Would we put up with it? I really don't think so. Just going by what kind of reception we've seen from people throughout the entire pandemic, even at the worst, when people were really dying, when a lot of bad things were happening, there were still people defying the government. So how many of us would have been okay if the government wanted to shut down the country because of something that was happening all the way over there in China? I don't think any of us would have been okay with it. So would have, could have, if those things don't fix anything. So let's, for now, assume that this pandemic was meant to happen. It's inevitable. It's unavoidable. While we want to respect all the suffering and sacrifices, it's also important to look at what some people, ourselves might included, have gotten out of this experience. One of my best friends, and bro, I'm going to use your story here. I'm not going to use your name, but uh, if you watch the video, hey, I hope you don't mind. If you do, let me know. I can take the video down. One of my best friend has been trying to get into medical school for many, many years. Like he was getting to the point where he was ready to give up. It was so uh, dejecting. It was so depressing. So much money, so much hard work. Every year he would apply, every year he would not get in. In the end, he tried uh, to get into medical school outside the country. He was going to say, okay, maybe I need to go to the United States. And he got accepted by medical school in Colorado back in 2019. Now, if the pandemic didn't happen, then he would be moving over to Colorado, attending medical school there, and having to distance himself from his friend and family because they're all here, his girlfriend here in Canada. He would be fighting a very, very hard battle. Doing something maybe would drive him nuts. But then the pandemic happened, so he was unable to go attend medical school in Colorado. So, since he was land bound here in Canada, he couldn't go anywhere, he decided to try again to apply for medical school here, 2020. This time, he got in. No need to go to Colorado, no need to strain his relationship, no need to leave his mom behind, no need to leave his friend behind. His dream came true because of the pandemic made it impossible for him to go to Colorado to go to medical school there. So, as far as for him, this has been a great blessing out of this crazy, crazy pandemic. And if you want to look at the small things, without the pandemic, honestly, you guys wouldn't have gotten these hundreds and hundreds of daily videos, because prior to the pandemic, I don't know how many of you remember, I basically just let this channel grow wild. It was un not tended to. I didn't have time. I didn't have the knows how. I didn't know how to make these daily videos. So I never bother to put in the time to learn. It wasn't until I was neck deep in this pandemic and there's nowhere to go, and I had a lot of time on my hand to experiment with things, that I started making these daily videos, and here we are. So this is one small inconsequential blessing we get out of the pandemic is these daily videos. Uh, Also, for a lot of disabled people here in Canada, uh, there was also a silver lining in this cloud. You see, for most disabled people, their disability benefit has been locked in place for many, many years, somewhere around $1,000 every month. Now, to put that in context, usually, if you're lucky, you can find a place to rent here for 800, which means you only have $200 left for the rest of the month for you to eat. Sit back and think if you can live on $200 for an entire month. It wasn't until the pandemic when the government added to the disability benefit and boosted up to $1,500 a month. Initially, they were only going to do that for a limited time, but then so many disabled people wrote into the government and told them that this uh, was what we needed, and uh, taking it away wouldn't be fair because the benefit had not scaled with modern living for so long. So in the end, the government decided to set the disability benefit up to around $1,400. Is it ideal? No, it's nowhere near good enough, but it's a lot better than $1,000. Prior to the pandemic, for years and years, we've seen old folks' homes, seniors' home, care homes being neglected by the government. We all knew there were bad things going on there. We all knew about the neglect, the abuse, the bad conditions that were going on in these homes, but no one did anything about it. It wasn't until when the seniors started dying off, the staff members started dying off from the pandemic, that the government suddenly decided to take a look and realize what a crappy condition these people have to endure. So hopefully, we can hope that because of this pandemic, now the government will finally take more notice of the sick, the disabled, the elderly, and give them better care in the future. Nothing in life is absolute. We like to say, well, nothing but death, but we don't even know that. We don't know what happened after death. Who knows? Maybe that's it. Maybe after we die, there's nothing else. But maybe death is just another transition, opening a door into a wider consciousness or a wider world. One day, I'm sure we will find out, and if I can, when I find out, I will be sure to let you know. But for now, I believe that life is very exciting, and the most exciting thing about life is nothing is as it seems to be. Nothing is absolute. There's good in every bad, and there's bad in every good. Thank you for checking out today's Soul Search Sunday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Music Monday. For now, have a good night. And please, take some time, think back, think about has there been anything good that happened to you? Anything great and wonderful, big or small, that you got out of this pandemic?